evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Bruce Frisco. Todd Battis is off this week. It is Tuesday, the 24th day of March. This is CTV News. Tonight, a minimum order, soaring fuel prices being reflected in home heating deliveries. Farmer frustration. Livestock producers unhappy with losing provincial vet service.
It's a chilly and blustery Wednesday ahead with the chance of flurries. Then the next system Thursday packs a mix of snow and rain.
Live from our Maritimes News Center, this is CTV News at 6. Here is Bruce Frisco.
Good evening. The calendar says spring, but the roller coaster ride for fuel prices around here is being felt by those who heat their homes with oil. Prices are expected to drop a little bit tomorrow, but it is unlikely to stay that way, and the issue is being reflected on invoices. CTV's Callum Smith explains.
Trucks come and go at Scotia Fuels just as often as the prices fluctuate these days.
The wholesale price since the 1st of March, when this started, has gone up 47 cents. Retail has only gone up 37, but it's just a constant battle every day trying to figure out what the price is, what it's going to be, and then try to plan accordingly.
Well, it doesn't impact people who have other options.
We haven't really noticed any change because we don't use a lot of heating oil. So we mainly rely on heat pumps.
It most certainly impacts others. How much have you spent on oil so far this year?
Oh, I'd say well over $3,000. Yeah.
And you got more to come?
Oh, yeah, I'll have another fill up before the winter's over.
Scotia Fuels has seen a big uptick in people calling when they want a delivery rather than the norm of signing up for automatic fill-ups, another way to watch the wallet.
We do have a minimum delivery, which is 450 liters, but today, actually, I instructed my staff to drop it down to 250 liters, just temporarily while things get adjusted in the world.
His full service price today was almost $2.20 per liter, something that's dropping below $2.10 tomorrow as he's left trying to chase the turbulent market.
The wholesale price is going up faster than the retail price, so that gets us squeezed. And then on top of that, we also have to pay, a lot of gas and diesel just to run our vehicles.
So while the providers are paying more, so too are those bearing the brunt of the bills at home.
Thankfully, they know that we're not cause of it, so customers have been good and understanding, but they still want to exercise their right to complain about the price. But they're not blaming anybody here, they're just complaining.
This homeowner understands that too, but wishes it wasn't this way.
It's terrible, but you got to heat your house, so there's nothing you can do about it. Just complain like most people, I guess.
Callum Smith, CTV News, Halifax.
Halifax police investigating a sudden death in the north end of the city. This happened Sunday afternoon, Fort Needham Memorial Park. Police say a 42-year-old man was found deceased in a tent there. Well, the death is not considered suspicious. The Nova Scotia medical examiner is investigating the cause of death. Brief court appearance in Moncton today for a man who is charged in connection with a murder that shocked the community. As CTV's Derek Haggett tells us tonight, people are still coming to terms with the disturbing details of the case.
It happened almost 6 weeks ago, but the nature of the crime still has many in disbelief. The body of Melissa Price was discovered in a garbage bin at the bottom of High Street on February 15th.
We get a lot of people around here, so homeless, carts, garbage. I just thought it was garbage.
Police arrested Devlin Oblinas on March 12th and charged him with first-degree murder in the death of the 39-year-old woman. Joshua Martin was arrested late last week and charged with being an accessory after the fact of murder. Martin made a video appearance in court today for a bail hearing on an unrelated matter and is due back in mid-April. Meanwhile, the man who says he discovered Price's body tells CTV News he's relieved arrests have been made.
I'm just kind of glad that they found somebody, you know what I mean, that girl needs recognition, her family needs recognition.
Jake Woods says when he noticed the garbage bin that day, he thought it was in an odd place, so he went to investigate.
As soon as I noticed what I thought it was, I just ran for the road right here, called 911, said I think I have either a dead body, I'm not sure if it's a female or male.
The next day, police conducted an operation in connection with the homicide investigation at a nearby affordable housing complex. The RCMP has not said how Price died. Devlin Oblinus, the man charged with first-degree murder in the death of Melissa Price, is scheduled to return to court on April 2nd. Derek Haggett, CTV News, Moncton.
An inmate who escaped from a correctional center in Shediac has been arrested after being on the lam for more than a month now. On February 12th, Todd John Lewis jumped a fence and escaped from the Southeast Regional Correctional Center. RCMP now say officers arrested the 35-year-old in Moncton yesterday. Lewis appeared in provincial court today to face charges of escaping lawful custody and breaching probation. Lewis, who'd previously been charged with weapons-related offenses, was remanded. He will go back to court on March 31st. And just a reminder, on our website, you'll find more stories, including a bust involving 100,000 counterfeit Canadian dollars. That's at ctvnewsatlantic.ca. The Fredericton Police Force Special Crime Unit investigating a reported sexual assault from this past weekend at a popular city park. Police were called to Odell Park around 5 o'clock Saturday afternoon after reports a female youth had been sexually assaulted while walking on a trail near the Rookwood Avenue entrance and the area of Odell Lodge. Victim says she was approached from behind by an unknown male, but was able to safely get away. Suspect described as about 40 years old, less than 6 feet tall, with a medium build, light gray and brown medium-length curly hair. He was wearing a zip-up camouflage hoodie, baggy gray sweatpants, black gloves, and hiking boots. Anyone with information on the incident or the suspect is being urged to contact police. Controversial no trespassing sign in a popular Dartmouth walking trail has been vandalized. The company that owns the property says the sign was spray painted sometime on Saturday. The signs were erected by Atlantic Road Construction, citing issues with the Halifax Regional Municipality. No trespassing order applies to the entire area along the waterfront, which is used by a lot of folks as a walking trail. The company says the vandalism has been reported now to police. Okay, here's a live look at downtown St. John's, where it's currently 2 degrees. We'll now get our first look at the forecast with meteorologist Kaylin Mitchell over there in the CTV Atlantic Weather Center. It feels like the old man does not want to let go here, hey?
Certainly not for parts of the Maritimes. Then Newfoundland afterwards is where that low-pressure system headed next. They were at one point underneath that orange level winter storm warning, and that's very much a heavy, wet snow that's sitting around St. John's and Newfoundland right now, because they didn't end up turning through some ice belts and freezing rain over to rain, and now they're sitting at a temperature of around +2 degrees. Of course, in the Maritimes, there were some very wintry scenes to start the day through some locations in Cape Breton. I'm a little surprised, though, that the observed snowfall reports didn't come in a little bit higher. It's not too uncommon for that to happen with a late March snow, though, because you get a lot of variability depending on what surface it's falling on as to how much actually adds up. But a report from this morning from around the Sydney area had about 5 centimeters of snow. Now, throughout the day today, there were still some flurries and continues to be some flurries in locations in Cape Breton on the back side of that weather system in a gusty and cold north wind coming in off the Gulf of St. Lawrence. Other parts of the Maritimes, we head through this evening and tonight looking at partly cloudy conditions as far as that storm system goes, so the one that brought in all that snow towards St. John's. The center of it is just moving north of the Avalon Peninsula. If you can take advantage of somewhat favorable viewing conditions tonight in the night sky for the Maritime region. It's a waxing crescent moon, 37% illuminated. That'll be high above the southwestern horizon this evening. After sunset, you can actually spot the planet Jupiter visible near the moon as well. The aurora unlikely to be observed tonight. There will be a pass from the International Space Station this evening at 9:30 p.m. Only 3 minutes long, so very brief, and moving from the northwest to the west. When I come back, Bruce, we'll talk about the next bigger weather system headed for us here in the Maritimes.
Sure, why not? All right, thank you, sir. Full forecast coming up at the bottom of the hour or so. And speaking of snow, after a long, hard winter, the last thing really anybody wanted this first week of spring was the white stuff. But as we've seen, that's exactly what they got in Cape Breton today. As usual, the end result was closures, cancellations, and delays. Here's CTV's Ryan McDonald.
The calendar might say it's spring, but the snow-covered roads and high winds the people in the Sydney area woke up to today suggested otherwise.
Are we sick of this?
Yes, we are.
Why?
Too much snow. Too hard on me.
A section of the South Bar Highway just outside of New Waterford was closed to traffic this morning as crews repaired damage to power poles.
Well, I think spring is only a date on a calendar based upon the weather forecast and the conditions that we've seen over the past few days.
Across the water in North Sydney, the parking lot of the Newfoundland ferry looked more like a traffic jam, with commercial trucks backed up significantly after crossings were cancelled last night and this morning.
Unfortunately, right now, we've got approximately 300 commercial units that are in North Sydney trying to get to Newfoundland.
Well, we were scheduled to fly out this afternoon, and that didn't happen.
Speaking of trying to get to the Rock, the Cape Breton Eagles team flight for their Quebec Maritimes Junior Hockey League first-round playoff series against the Newfoundland Regiment was postponed shortly before takeoff this afternoon.
Well, when you're flying somewhere, it's the weather here or the weather there. So while it does look somewhat wintry on the ground in Cape Breton, it's more the weather in St. John's that I understand that's the problem.
Back in Cape Breton, classes were canceled again in the Cape Breton Victoria Regional Centre for Education. By midday, though, the sun came out just in time for some people to clean up for what they hope is the final time till next winter.
Do you figure this is our last blast or what?
I hope so, yes.
I think people in Cape Breton and Newfoundland know that late March is neither spring nor winter. It's its own thing. We wake up one day, it could be one, it could be the other, and I guess we're feeling the winter right now.
And Bruce, I know some of you were wondering just how many days the kids here have lost, how many school days due to bad weather this year. Well, the numbers, they are in. According to the Cape Breton Victoria Regional Centre for Education, region-wide, there have been 13 days that classes were canceled for the day due to inclement weather. And if you look only at the schools north of Smoky, that number jumps to 17 days, which is nearly 3.5 weeks worth of storm days. Bruce.
Incredible. All right, thank you, Ryan. CTV's Ryan McDonald cleaning up in Sydney tonight after the latest big wintry blast. Nova Scotia government is a step closer to passing its budget. Billions in spending will be approved soon, leaving only an omnibus bill that is currently the focus of some public hearings. As CTV's Jesse Thomas tells us tonight, the opposition says the government, though, should slow down while those hearings are underway.
The province's spending plan is all but a done deal. It's expected the PC government will pass the Appropriations Act Tuesday night, which includes more than $17 billion in departmental spending, leaving only the Financial Measures Act to pass, which is undergoing 4 days of public hearings.
There's two parts to the budget. There's the FMA and there's the Appropriations Act, so both need to pass for the budget to pass.
Over the past 2 days, Bill 148, the Financial Measures Act, has seen almost 80 people come and speak to government, mostly sharing concerns over budget cuts. Although the cuts are found at the departmental level within the Appropriations Act, the public is being given the chance to speak to the cuts during the Bill 148 briefing. Opposition argue once the Appropriation Act moves forward, much of the spending concerns raised at these public hearings will have little to no impact.
If the appropriations passes while the Premier is in Texas in the middle of the night when we're in the middle of public bills, then Nova Scotians are going to be even more upset than they are right now.
Opposition argue Premier Tim Houston should be in the House to vote on the Appropriation Act. The Premier, who is also the Energy Minister, is attending an energy conference in Houston, Texas.
He's where he needs to be right now. He'll be back as soon as he can. I understand he plans to be back on Friday.
The PC party says Houston will be at the legislature to vote on the final bill and fully pass the budget later. Jesse Thomas, CTV News, Halifax.
Thank you, Jesse. Still to come tonight, snow and rain on the way. Kaylin will have those details coming up. And also ahead, the latest from New York as authorities investigate that deadly crash at LaGuardia Airport. Also coming up, the latest from the Middle East.
More blasts around the Middle East, both in Israel and inside of Iran. What that could mean as President Trump continues to signal that negotiations are ongoing and the war could be brought to an end soon. Plus, what we're now learning today about more deployments to the Middle East. I'm Olivia Rubin with the latest coming up.
The farm was once again a focus in the New Brunswick legislature today, specifically cuts to public veterinary services as outlined in last week's budget. CTV's Nick Moore has the latest on the growing questions and concerns about that.
The New Brunswick government's decision to move provincial veterinary field and lab services to the private sector is being rushed without consultation, according to the official opposition.
We already have a shortage of large animal vets, and this will make things worse.
The Progressive Conservatives spent much of today's question period hammering the decision revealed in last week's Liberal budget. Turning the service from public to private is supposed to save the provincial government $5 million in 2026-27.
The lab is not being closed tomorrow. We're going to work on a very good transition plan to make sure that the service, there's a seamless continuance of service.
Minister of Agriculture, Aquaculture and Fisheries Pat Finnegan says the province will work with veterinarians to start their own practices or join private clinics.
We're working on this to transition this to a model where those services will be available in the private sector, but make sure that it is fully accredited.
Interim PC leader Glenn Savoy says it is all wishful thinking.
This government is trying to make New Brunswickers believe that all provincial vets are going to simply switch over to the private sector. Do they think vets can do the same work they do today while doing all the administrative, logistical, and financial work needed to get a business off the ground?
Today, the New Brunswick SPCA issued a statement saying it was concerned the changes could affect the agency's ability to effectively carry out animal protection investigations and that it was looking for a one-on-one meeting with the provincial government. The switch from public to private services is supposed to take place over the next 3 fiscal years. Nick Moore, CTV News, Fredericton.
Get the Maritime's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
A runway warning system did not sound an alarm before an Air Canada jet slammed into a fire truck at New York's LaGuardia Airport. 2 Air Canada pilots were killed, 40 others injured during Sunday night's collision. NBC's Andrew Siff has the latest.
NTSB investigators say they've seen the same security camera video the public has, showing the moment of impact between that Air Canada jet and a Port Authority fire truck, killing both pilots. Today, National Transportation Safety Board Chair Jennifer Homendy and lead investigator Doug Brazy revealed some of what was heard in the cockpit during Flight 8646's final approach.
At 1 minute and 12 seconds, the flight crew confirmed that the landing checklist was complete. At 1 minute and 3 seconds, an airport vehicle made a radio transmission to the tower, but that transmission was stepped on by another radio transmission.
At that moment, it's unclear if the air traffic controller was still occupied by another situation, a United Airlines flight's smoke condition. Meanwhile, seconds later,
at 9 seconds, the tower instructed truck 1 to stop. At 8 seconds, there was a sound consistent with the airplane's landing gear. At 6 seconds, there was a pilot transfer of controls. And at 4 seconds, the tower again instructed truck 1 to stop. At 0 seconds, the recording ended.
The NTSB says it's too early to determine the cause of the crash or assign blame.
We rarely, if ever, investigate a major accident where it was one failure, because there are multiple layers of defense built in to prevent an accident. So when something goes wrong, that means many, many things went wrong.
I asked the chair if standard staffing levels, just 2 people in the tower at this time of night, were enough for LaGuardia on a busy Sunday.
Around this time, late at night on a Sunday night at LaGuardia, there's still lots of arrivals. To that degree, does that raise questions about the protocol and staffing here at this airport?
That's certainly something we will look at as part of this investigation. How that would that make sense? You know, why would that make sense at LaGuardia? We will, that is part of our analysis in this investigation.
All of this unfolding as the airport inched back towards normalcy, with only 1 runway open and the plane's wreckage in open view for arriving passengers who admit to experiencing some anxiety of their own.
Yeah, any kind of turbulence on the plane, especially landing and still seeing the plane on the runway, it gets a little in your mind, makes it a little scary.
That report from Andrew Siff from NBC News. Overseas to the war in Iran now, blasts continuing around the Middle East despite U.S. President Donald Trump's claims of productive negotiations. Israeli officials reporting damage in Tel Aviv from Iranian strikes. ABC's Olivia Rubin has the latest.
Today, new Iranian strikes blasting Tel Aviv. Israeli authorities say a missile intercepted, damaging buildings and cars. A chaotic scene here showing smoke and flames in the streets. Sirens blaring as people flee towards shelters. Israel vowing to continue its own campaign in Lebanon, saying they've blown up all bridges over the Litani River there. This video showing the blast. New strikes today in Tehran, too. This video shared by Iran's Red Crescent showing the aftermath, an entire building seemingly destroyed. The team trying to rescue someone trapped in the rubble. President Trump says the U.S. is engaged in productive talks with Iran to bring an end to the war.
The other side, I can tell you, they'd like to make a deal. And who wouldn't if you were there? Look, their Navy's gone, their Air Force is gone.
But Iran saying no talks with the U.S. have taken place, saying any claims to the contrary are, quote, aimed at influencing financial and oil markets and distracting from the challenges facing the U.S. and Israel. Yet the president saying the two sides have already agreed on several points.
They've agreed they will never have a nuclear weapon. They've agreed to that.
One key aspect, the Strait of Hormuz. The president calling for the critical waterway to be reopened as global prices skyrocket.
Now, adding to the conflicting messaging, a source saying part of the 82nd Airborne is set to deploy to the Middle East soon, standing in contrast to President Trump signaling that the war is ending soon. Olivia Rubin, ABC News, Washington.
Okay, we'll step aside for a moment. Coming up next, chilly and blustery tomorrow with a chance of flurries. Kaylin has all the details when CTV News at 6 continues. Come on back. Okay, no sign of flooding in New Brunswick so far this season, but that was not the case on this date 47 years ago. It was March 24th, 1979. The St. John and Nashwauk Rivers spilled over their banks, flooding Stanley, New Brunswick, and forcing evacuations of nearby homes. Highway 107 near Stanley was closed because of the flooding, as was the Trans-Canada at Majorville. There were also some flooded homes in Fredericton. Again, that was this day 47 years ago. And you can see more images from that day on our YouTube page. Both of us far too young to remember any of it. But that said, yeah, I mean, it's a problem at this time of year, right?
Yeah, it's always something we got to monitor at this time of year. The Riverwatch program in New Brunswick is active now. Like you said, there haven't been any issues so far, but it needs to be watched as we continue on with the spring freshet. One of the things that can actually benefit the situation is that if we move through the spring, if we have colder nights and then days that come up a bit, yeah, it slows down the melt a little bit. Of course, the big X factor, and it's always the X factor each year, is we've got to watch for any ice jams, right? Because that's when you get into sort of an escalating flooding situation very quickly. If you get a couple ice jams, especially combined with some rain in the forecast. Yeah. Now, speaking of rain in the forecast, we do have some rain in the forecast coming up on Thursday. Let's take a look at the tail of the tape of this next weather system. So this is going to be a low-pressure system that begins developing as it moves through the Great Lakes region, but really gets its feet under it as it starts to approach Maine and southern areas of Quebec. In fact, as it moves past the Maritimes, it'll strengthen further with the central pressure falling to 996 millibars as it moves up to the Gulf of St. Lawrence. Timing for us here in the Maritimes, as far as we can expect this mixture of snow turning over to rain, drizzle, and fog for most of the region, is Thursday into Friday. Like I said, it is going to be a mix of precipitation. There are some areas, though, that could pick up some accumulations in wet snow, including northern New Brunswick, especially at higher terrain, and up in the Cape Breton Highlands. Interesting note for this weather system, once it's past us and past Newfoundland and off the coast of Labrador, the weather front from it will stretch basically from Greenland all the way down towards the Carolinas. Of course, that front will be well to the east of us at that point in time. Let's take a look at some of the effects that this weather system could have. We'll begin with a snowfall outlook, and once again, you can see where the blue blue start to shade in around northern areas of New Brunswick through the day on Thursday. It's possible in some locations there could be a few to several centimeters of wet snow, especially into some of the more mountainous areas. And additionally, you can see a little bullseye showing up in the Cape Breton Highlands. Other areas initially with this weather system could see a little bit of snow to start, but the turnover to rain, drizzle, and fog should take care of it. As the weather system clears on Friday, there might be a brief turn back to some snow for some areas, and there will be colder temperatures that follow into the start of the weekend, so we may need to watch for any wet or slushy surfaces turning icy. Rainfall amounts for this weather system. The most rain expected for the province of Nova Scotia. Right now, ballpark 10 to 30 millimeters. There might be some pockets of a little bit higher than that, maybe in the range of around 30, 40 millimeters of rain, especially towards the Atlantic coastal counties of that province. Rainfall amounts of around 10 to 20 millimeters close to the Bay of Fundy coastline in New Brunswick, looking at about 5 to 15 millimeters for Prince Edward Island. Some rain for central and northern areas of New Brunswick. Remember, that's where there will be some wet snow as well. Taking a look at the forecast for the shorter term, so talking about tonight and tomorrow. Colder temperatures once again for a late March night for the Maritimes, mostly falling into a range of around -4 to -8. Some coastal areas between around -3 and -1. A little bit colder towards the northwest New Brunswick, Edmundston at around -10. Conditions tomorrow for northern areas of New Brunswick, chilly, high temperatures between -1 and -5, coldest towards the northwest. There'll be some isolated flurries, mostly during the morning, followed by some clearing and a blustery northwest wind with some gusts between 20 and 50 kilometers per hour. It'll also be blustery tomorrow for central and southern areas of New Brunswick, though temperatures in the afternoon mostly coming up between 3 and 6 degrees. Prince Edward Island for tomorrow with high temperatures. It'll be in the low single digits. Some flurries moving through mostly in the morning and some gusty northwest winds. In eastern areas of Nova Scotia tomorrow, some flurries in the forecast. High temperatures for Cape Breton between 1 and 3 degrees, and for the North Shore and the Eastern Shore, mostly around 3-4 degrees. For northern and central areas of Nova Scotia for tomorrow, the highest chance of flurries will be in the morning, followed by some gusty west winds throughout the rest of the day. High temperatures between 3 and 5. And in the southwest of Nova Scotia, high temperatures tomorrow between 4 and 6 degrees. And again, the highest chance of flurries will be early in the morning. Taking a look at the 7-day outlook for New Brunswick. So there's that mixture of snow and rain moving through Thursday, clearing out very early on Friday. It's cold in behind it for the start of the weekend. There'll be a chance of flurries on Sunday and some further flurries expected next Monday night into Tuesday morning. In the forecast for Nova Scotia, coming up on Thursday, initial snow turns over to rain, drizzle, and fog. The rain will clear out on Friday, though the last bit of it may turn over to a brief period of snow, and it does get colder Friday night into Saturday, so we might have to watch for some icy spots developing. Chance of flurries on Sunday, and then the next chance of some flurries and showers will be Monday night into Tuesday. And here's a look at Prince Edward Island over the next several days. We've got snow turning over to rain on Thursday. Clearing is a mixture of showers and flurries on Friday. It's cold to get the weekend started, followed by chilly temperatures on Sunday and a chance of flurries, and then some flurries and showers possible next Monday night into Tuesday. Bruce.
Right you are. Thank you, my friend. Wake-up weather coming up toward the top of the clock. Coming up next, we'll chat with an expert on the hardships being faced by the people of Cuba because of the U.S. energy blockade. Stay with us.
Okay, so coming up on the show tomorrow, a chance to win $100 in free gas.
That'll be right around 7:30. Good luck.
Plus, we'll give you details on how you could win $1,000 cash.
Buried in all the recent headlines surrounding the growing war in the Middle East is the ongoing misery facing a small Caribbean country that a lot of Maritimers feel a connection with, and that, of course, is Cuba. The communist country has long suffered under the weight of an American blockade, but found its way over time, welcoming millions of tourists every year, including many from around here. Barack Obama, you'll recall, eased restrictions during his presidency and even normalized diplomatic relations between the countries. And then came Donald Trump. After bombing and then capturing the Venezuelan president, Nicolas Maduro, in the early days of January, the U.S. president effectively cut off Cuba from its main fuel supplier. And it's worth noting this is not an unexpected consequence here. The president has said starving the island of fuel is a strategy to pressure the communist government. Joining us tonight to discuss all of this, we're pleased to welcome St. FX Professor Emeritus and Latin American a senior researcher, Yvonne Grenier, to the program. Thanks so much for joining us tonight.
My pleasure.
In a recent op-ed, you noted it remains unclear what Trump wants from Cuba, except perhaps finally bringing down a regime that no other U.S. president has been able to do.
Well, indeed, it is not clear at all because we're not even sure of what you just said. I think that his objectives seem to be limited. He sees it as a low-hanging fruit in a way. There's not much for him to take advantage of. It's not like Venezuela, which has the biggest oil reserve in the world. Some would say that, you know, this is Trump, so Trump as a head of state doesn't play chess, he plays Monopoly. So he likes the idea of having like lovely resorts and maybe he wanted, in fact, we know that years and years ago he tried to actually, he had planned to have a Trump hotel in Cuba, so maybe that's what he wants to do now. And of course, there are different constituencies in his own administration. I know that there are a lot of people in his administration who are pushing for regime change, but I'm not sure that's important to him, whether it's this regime that continues, but very much like in Venezuela, where you basically pluck the leader out of the country, and a little bit like a hostile takeover in the business world that he's so familiar with, where the company remains intact, but basically the boss changes and gives new direction. Yeah. And so in a way, like you have part of the economy in Cuba that is managed by a conglomerate where most of the officials, the top officials are military, senior military people. And maybe I think that's possible that you could cut a deal with them where basically part of the regime would stay in place, because regime change means if you break it, you own it. It means maybe investing in Cuba. Maybe it means a flow of a migrant crisis with Cubans trying to leave the country. So I wouldn't be surprised if Trump is trying to find a deal where things don't change that much, or certainly not that quickly.
So that's the end game. But right now, you know, the blackouts are kind of getting the headlines. But this is very serious for the Cuban people, right? Like everything from hospitals to food storage requires electricity. And a lot of people are thinking that this U.S. policy feels cruel, mean-spirited.
Yeah, well, I think what you have here is an economy that was already doing extremely poorly. You have anywhere between 1.5 to 2 million people who left the island in the past 5-6 years because the economy is so terrible. And so that oil blockade really means that the economy, like this is the last station, the train is screeching to as it arrives to its final station. But it was pretty bad before. What it is also, it's a blockade. You say it was a blockade before. It was more an embargo in the sense that if it had been a blockade, you wouldn't have 1 million Canadians going every year and Canadians investing there. So now it's a real blockade, which means that it violates not only the sovereignty of Cuba, but also the sovereignty of other countries who may want to, for instance, ship oil to Cuba. So that's certainly something that is really unprecedented, even from the perspective of like U.S. imposing sanctions on Cuba. And if I have a chance, I'll also want to say that there's another form of sovereignty that's very important, that is popular sovereignty. The Cuban government doesn't want to negotiate its political system with an American president. The problem is that it doesn't want to negotiate that with Cubans either. It is a dictatorship, and you have like 1,200 political prisoners in Cuba right now. And so, you know, I feel, as far to go back to your initial question, that Cubans are the real victims here, not necessarily the Cuban government, but Cubans in the sense that the Cuban government would like the Cubans to, you know, raise up and defend the country against the invaders if there is an invasion. And Trump would like the Cubans to raise up and protest and
take over the country.
Their own government. Everybody wants to use them, but in fact, they are the real victims, and they're really, really suffering now. So I think it's important to have humanitarian aid at the very least for this population. And Canada's already indicated that it will be doing this. Other countries have done it. The U.S. is doing it too through like private channels, like Catholic mostly networks. And so, but the oil thing, you know, that's very complicated. I think the Russians are trying to deliver oil. Will their tanker be stopped by the U.S. Navy? That could like trigger all of a sudden a new sort of chapter in that conflict. And finally, I think the difference with Venezuela, a country I mentioned before, is that Venezuela is the regime is more a patchwork of different groups, and so maybe it's easier to conceive the idea of taking one group and saying, okay, I'm going to work with you, but not with you guys. In the case of Cuba, it's more really a whole system that is very well integrated. It's very much like Iran in that sense, even though ideologically they're very, very different. But and so there could be more difficulty to try to cut a deal, that the kind of deal that Trump would like to have. As I said, other members of his regime and his constituency in Florida in particular would love to have just get rid completely of that regime. But I don't think it's necessarily the number one objective of Trump. Trump he's a business person. He wants to cut deals in order to have better economic sort of opportunities for American investors, maybe for Cuban American investors, and maybe for himself. Democracy, I don't think, is, and therefore regime change in and of itself is not necessarily a top objective for Donald Trump, I think.
We'll have to leave it there, Yvon. I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it.
That's my pleasure.
Yvon Grenier is a Latin American senior research and professor emeritus at St. FX. He joined us tonight to talk about the ongoing U.S. blockade of Cuba that is starving that country of fuel. Stay with us. We'll be right back. In the Lifeline tonight, the popularity of GLP-1 medications like Wegovy, plus the risks associated with using cannabis at a young age. Those stories and more with CTV's Suzette Beliveau.
We're getting a sense of just how popular GLP-1 weight loss drugs have become. About 1 in 8 U.S. adults now say they're taking a GLP-1, such as Wegovy. This data is according to a recent survey by the health research group KFF. Just since January, more than 600,000 prescriptions have been written for the new Wegovy pill. But medication alone isn't the answer, experts caution. It also takes lifestyle changes, healthy diet, exercise, adequate sleep, and stress management to reap the biggest benefits from the drugs. A new study finds that early and frequent cannabis use is linked to several problems for high school students, including lower grades and difficulties with social and emotional control. The research shows a clear dose-response pattern. Teens who use cannabis monthly, weekly, or daily had worse academic performance and more issues with impulsivity and aggressive behaviors than non-users. The negative effects were strongest amongst teens under 16. Risk-taking behaviors were more common in girls than in boys. Cannabis use was also more frequent among teens with easier access to cannabis and friends who use it. If you're concerned about your child's use of cannabis products, speak with a medical professional. And finally, relieving stress with forest therapy. People bathe in nature to get respite from trees and a chaotic news cycle. The therapy is based on the Japanese wellness practice of Shinrin-yoku. The activity has been known to reduce stress, improve mood, lower blood pressure, and boost the immune system. These sessions in North Carolina are led by certified forest therapy guides. With health and medical news, I'm Suzette Beliveau for The Lifeline.
Okay, we're on the scene now with entertainment news. It was 6 years ago Ryan Gosling received a copy of an unpublished science fiction novel. That book is now a bestseller, and the film adaptation starring the Canadian actor is #1 at the box office. CNN's David Daniel has a look now at the new film.
If we do nothing, everything on this planet will go extinct, including us.
Ryan Gosling and Sandra Hüller star in Project Hail Mary, based on the novel by The Martian author Andy Weir.
It felt like it had all of the makings to be one of those core memory movies that we grew up with, one of those sort of films that you remember where you were when you saw it?
It is so full of surprises and twists and humanity, and we can learn so many things, and it has so many wonderful characters.
I'm gonna call you Rocky. We're here for the same reason. His son is dying too.
The Martian screenwriter Drew Goddard also tackled Project Hail Mary.
This book is just much more ambitious and difficult, both in terms of its spectacle, but also in terms of its internal characterization and emotional arcs. It's just a much more complicated story.
It felt like an impossible mission to make this movie because it's so complicated, it's so ambitious. You go to another galaxy, you make best friends with an alien, and you save the world. And it's not bad for a Friday night, but that's a tall order.
There are infinite possibilities for this to go wrong.
This ship wasn't built for this.
In Hollywood, I'm David Daniel.
And should tell you, Project Hail Mary made an estimated $80.6 million this past weekend, the best film debut of the year so far, and in fact, the biggest opening ever for its distributor, Amazon MGM Studios. Okay, we'll step aside. Here's a look at tonight's primetime lineup here on
with Aaron and Peter. Get on Aaron and Peter's $10,000 payroll. Register at move100halifax.ca.
And at 7 tomorrow, tell us, what were you not allowed to do as a kid? All the other kids could do it, but you couldn't?
The markets today, the Dow ended the day down 84 points. The Middle East conflict has already spiked the price of oil and gas, but it could lead to price hikes for many other products as well. BNN Bloomberg's Marilla Fernandez has more.
The CEO of Dollarama says the discount chain will try not to pass on price increases to customers. The discount store just reported earnings with sales of just over $2 billion for the quarter. But Dollarama is bracing for weaker demand, saying the Iran conflict will likely lead to price increases for any goods that need to be shipped. Dollarama CEO says those costs will permeate the supply chain for at least the next few months. Here are the closing numbers for the day. The Canadian dollar is up to 72.66. West Texas Intermediate is up over $4 to 92.35. Western Canadian Select is down $9 to 72.91. And the TSX gained 57 points today. Those are your business headlines. I'm Marilla Fernandez.
Thank you, Marilla. Now we'll head outside to Kaylin on the weather deck. How's it looking out there?
Pretty clear at the moment, Bruce. Expecting partly cloudy conditions a little bit later tonight and another colder March night. Let's take a look at our viewer picture, and this is coming in from a sunrise this past weekend. It was sent in from Denise Foster from Parkdale, Nova Scotia. I want to thank Denise very much for the great picture here. Parkdale area for tomorrow is expecting a few flurries to move through in the morning, but then a high temperature near 5 degrees in the afternoon. It's going to be a little bit blustery tomorrow, as it will be across the entirety of the Maritime region. Day planner for tomorrow, we do start off the day with colder temperatures and scattered flurries around the Maritimes. By the time we get to the afternoon, though, we're basically down to a chance of flurries in parts of Prince Edward Island and eastern areas of Nova Scotia. Most high temperatures tomorrow coming up towards the low to mid single digits, a little bit colder in the north of New Brunswick. Here's what's coming up on Your Morning Atlantic.
Wednesday on Your Morning Atlantic, calling all collage lovers. Halifax's Museum of Natural History is hosting themed collage workshop evenings for adults. We'll get a preview. Start your morning with us Wednesday on Your Morning Atlantic on CTV2 and Crave.
Thank you, ladies. Finally tonight, a group of school students in neighboring Maine are preparing to take flight. The students in Bangor are sending yeast to the edge of space in a balloon flight that's sponsored by NASA. The experiment is titled Yeast in the Stars. The yeast will be exposed to UV radiation, gases, and extremely cold temperatures. When it comes back down, the question for students will be what components up in space impact the yeast. Once it's all completed, the team will be presenting their work during a NASA student showcase in May. So can you bake bread in space? They'll find out for us. Okay, that's the program for this Tuesday night. The rebroadcast begins in just a moment on CTV2 and, of course, CTVNewsAtlantic.ca updates around the clock. I'm Bruce Briscoe in for Todd Battis. I'll be back at 11:30 tonight. Thanks for watching. Have a good evening.
CTV News, the Maritime's #1 newscast. Watch live on Crave.